Ferdinand Magellan. Chapter 1. A Boy of Portugal. In the year 1480, a long time ago, a baby boy named Ferdinand Magellan was born in a cozy village called Sabrosa, tucked away in Portugal. Imagine a time long, long ago, almost 500 years before today. Portugal, back then, was a country buzzing with excitement. Brave sailors set off in big, strong ships to explore the wide world, just like on a giant adventure. My family wasn't the richest, but we weren't poor either. We were special though, kind of like royalty. Important people were way back in my family history. My parents, Rui de Magalhães and Alda de Mesquita, raised me with lots of love and taught me how to be polite and well-mannered. Sadly, they both passed away when I was still young. Because of my family connections, I got a lucky chance to become a page for Queen Leonor. A page is like a helper for someone very important, kind of like an assistant today. This meant I lived in the royal palace in Lisbon, a grand building with tall towers that reached for the sky and many, many rooms. It was like living in a giant, amazing house. Every day, important people came and went from the palace, making it a busy and exciting place. I learned so much just by being around them, hearing stories about faraway lands. The palace was also filled with treasures, maps that showed the whole world, even places nobody had ever seen before. These maps were like colorful pictures, with strange shapes and squiggly lines that showed the big, blue oceans. I spent hours looking at these maps, imagining all the places I could visit someday. Sometimes, explorers who had just returned from their journeys would come to the palace. They would tell amazing stories about the things they saw: mountains that touched the clouds, forests so thick you couldn't see through them, and bustling markets filled with spices that smelled like sunshine and dirt in a good way. A feeling grew strong inside me, a feeling of wanting to see these incredible things for myself. It was like a tiny seed planted in my heart, a seed of adventure that would soon grow big and strong. Life at the palace wasn't all fun and games though. I learned proper manners, how to write and read, and even how to fight with a sword, just in case. You never knew what might happen when exploring the world. One of my favorite things to do was practice navigating, which is like figuring out where you are and where you're going when you're traveling. We didn't have fancy GPS back then, so people used the stars and the sun to guide them. I learned how to read constellations, which are groups of stars that look like pictures in the night sky. They were like a map in the darkness, helping sailors find their way home. As I grew older, the stories of explorers and the colorful maps on the palace walls filled my head with dreams. I didn't want to stay inside the palace forever. The wide, blue ocean called to me, and I longed to be an explorer, just like the ones who came back with amazing stories. Chapter 2. Setting Sail on the Big Blue. By the time I was a teenager, my heart was set on adventure. The stories of brave sailors and the smell of salty air from the nearby harbor filled my days with a longing for the sea. Sitting in the palace all day wasn't for me anymore. In 1505, when I turned 25, my dream finally came true. I joined a big group of Portuguese ships ready to set sail on the vast, wide ocean. Imagine a giant blue carpet stretching as far as the eye can see. That's kind of what the ocean looked like back then. Our ships were strong and sturdy, with tall masts that reached for the sky and sails that caught the wind like giant white kites. The crew was a mix of men from all walks of life, some young and eager, some older and experienced. We all shared a common goal: to explore the unknown. The journey was long and not always easy. We sailed down the coast of Africa, facing strong winds that pushed our ships this way and that. The sun beat down hot on our faces, making us sweat buckets. Sometimes the ocean became rough and angry, tossing our ships around like toys. We all got seasick, a horrible feeling that makes you want to lie down and never get up. But even with these challenges, there were amazing things to see. Dolphins jumped playfully alongside our ships, their sleek bodies glistening in the sunlight. At night, the sky exploded with a million twinkling stars, like a giant, sparkly blanket. We even spotted strange, flying fish that leaped out of the water and glided for short distances. Life on board wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, though. We had to work hard to keep the ship running smoothly. We took turns steering the ship, pulling ropes to raise and lower the sails, and keeping a lookout for danger. We also had to learn to fight with swords, just in case we encountered pirates or other enemies at sea. Food and water were precious, so we had to ration them carefully. We ate mostly dried meat, fish, bread, and hard biscuits. Sometimes, we were lucky enough to catch fresh fish or stop at an island to gather fruits and vegetables. The journey wasn't just about sailing, though. We also explored the lands we came across. We landed on the coasts of Africa and Asia, meeting people who spoke different languages and had different customs. Some of them were friendly and welcomed us with open arms, offering us food and shelter. Others were more cautious and suspicious of strangers. No matter where we went, we learned something new. We saw strange and wonderful animals, like elephants with long trunks and monkeys swinging through the trees. We tasted exotic fruits we had never seen before, some sweet and juicy, others sour and strange. We learned about different cultures and religions, realizing that people all over the world lived differently but shared a common humanity. For many years, I sailed with the Portuguese fleet. We explored the coasts of India and Asia, discovering new lands and trading with different people. We brought back spices like cinnamon and cloves, which were like magic dust in Europe, used for cooking and medicine. They were so valuable that people would pay a lot of money just for a small amount. However, things started to change. I didn't always agree with the way the Portuguese treated the people in these new lands. Sometimes, they were harsh and even violent, taking what they wanted without asking. This didn't feel right to me. I also felt like the Portuguese weren't giving me the recognition I deserved for my skills and experience. After all, I had learned a lot and was a skilled sailor and leader. So, in 1517, after many years of loyal service, I decided to make a tough choice. I would leave Portugal and find a new place to explore. It was a big decision, but I knew it was the right one. With my head full of plans and my heart full of hope, I set off to find a new adventure. Chapter 3. A New Path Opens Up. Leaving Portugal was a difficult decision, like tearing a favorite page out of a book. I had spent many years sailing under their flag, exploring new lands and facing countless challenges. But a seed of discontent had been growing inside me. I disagreed with how the Portuguese treated the people in the lands we explored. It felt wrong to take advantage of them and claim their riches without respect. Additionally, I felt undervalued. Despite my years of experience and leadership skills, the Portuguese seemed blind to my potential. In 1517, after much deliberation, I knew it was time for a change. It was like closing a chapter in my life and starting a whole new story. With a heart full of hope and a head brimming with ideas, I decided to offer my skills and knowledge to a different country, Spain, Portugal's rival. King Charles V of Spain listened to my plans with keen interest. I had a bold idea to find a completely new route to the Spice Islands, a group of islands in Asia where precious spices like cloves and cinnamon grew. Everyone knew the existing route was long and dangerous, involving a treacherous journey around Africa and across the vast Indian Ocean. I believe there had to be a faster, more efficient way to reach these treasures. Imagine a giant maze, with only one way to reach the center where the treasure lies. That's what the existing route was like. My idea was to find a new path through the maze, a shortcut that would save time and resources. The king was impressed with my audacity. Here I was, a foreigner with a daring plan, and he saw the potential in my vision. He agreed to fund my expedition, providing me with 5 ships and a crew of brave men. It was a huge honor, a chance to finally lead my own adventure and make a real difference in the world. However, gathering a crew for such a risky journey wasn't easy. It was like asking people to sail off the edge of the world. Many were hesitant, worried about the unknown dangers that awaited them. But I spoke to them with passion, describing the potential rewards and the glory of exploration. I explained my plan in detail, showing them maps and charts to illustrate my idea. Slowly, a group of courageous men started to gather around me, men who shared my thirst for adventure and were willing to take a chance on a new path. Preparing for the expedition was a big task. We needed to stock the ships with enough food and water to last for months, not knowing what we might encounter along the way. We also needed tools and repairs kits to fix any damage the ships might sustain during the journey. Imagine packing for a very long camping trip, but on a boat and not knowing where you'll be camping. We loaded the ships with cannons and other weapons, just in case we encountered enemies on the way. Pirates were a constant threat on the high seas, and we needed to be prepared to defend ourselves. Additionally, we packed valuable trade goods like cloth and tools, hoping to barter with the people we might meet on our journey. Finally, after months of planning and preparation, the day arrived for us to set sail. In September 1519, with a crew of over 200 men, we left Spain behind and headed toward the unknown. The excitement was electric, mixed with a healthy dose of nervousness. We were about to embark on a journey unlike any other, a journey that could change the course of history. But little did I know, the challenges that awaited us would test our courage and push us to our limits. The path ahead was full of danger, hardship, and unexpected twists and turns. Yet, with determination and a spirit of exploration, we were ready to face whatever came our way. Chapter 4. Setting Sail into the Big Unknown. September 1519. The crisp autumn air filled my lungs as I stood on the deck of the lead ship, the Trinidad. A sea of excited faces surrounded me, my crew, over 200 men strong, all eager for adventure. We had 5 ships in total: the Trinidad, the San Antonio, the Concepcion, the Victoria, and the Santiago. They weren't giant ships, more like strong boats, but they carried our hopes and dreams for a successful journey. We left the Spanish harbor behind, the familiar coastline slowly fading into the distance. Ahead lay the vast blue ocean, a giant sheet of water stretching as far as the eye could see. It was both exciting and a little scary. We were sailing into the unknown, a place where no European had been before. The first few days were smooth sailing. The sun shone brightly, the wind filled our sails, and the crew was in high spirits. We sang sea shanties, told stories, and practiced our sword-fighting skills, just in case we needed to defend ourselves. But the ocean, like a giant mood swing, can change quickly. One morning, dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and the wind picked up, whipping the waves into a frenzy. Our little ships tossed and turned like toys in a bathtub. Seasickness, a horrible feeling that makes you want to throw up and never stop, spread like wildfire through the crew. Many men, brave just a few days ago, turned pale and green, clinging to anything they could hold on to. The storm raged for days, testing our strength and resilience. Leaks sprung up in the ships, and we had to work tirelessly to repair them. We rationed our food and water, not knowing how long the storm would last. It was a time of fear and uncertainty, but we never gave up hope. We encouraged each other, sang songs to keep our spirits high, and relied on our skills as sailors to navigate through the rough seas. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the storm subsided. The sun peeked through the clouds, and a gentle breeze replaced the howling wind. Relief washed over the crew like a cool wave. We had faced our first challenge and emerged stronger. Now came the real test, finding a new passage to the Spice Islands. My plan was to sail south along the coast of Africa, hoping to find a passage that would lead us to the other side of the continent and into the Indian Ocean. We followed the familiar coastline for weeks, the hot African sun beating down on us mercilessly. But as the weeks turned into months, frustration started to grow. We hadn't found any passage, and the crew started to grumble. Some questioned my leadership, muttering about a crazy plan and a wasted journey. It was tough to hear their doubts, but I knew I had to stay strong and focused. I encouraged the crew, reminding them of the potential rewards and the glory of discovery. We held feasts with the little food we had left, sang songs, and shared stories to keep their spirits up. I used my knowledge of the stars to navigate, showing them the constellations that would guide us on our journey. Finally, after months of sailing and facing hardships, we reached the very tip of South America. It was a land unlike anything we had ever seen, with towering mountains and lush green forests. We explored the coastline, hoping to find a hidden passage, a secret door leading us to the other side. And then, one day, a glimmer of hope. We spotted a narrow opening between two cliffs. It was like a tiny crack in a giant wall. Could this be it? The long-awaited passage? With a mix of excitement and caution, we steered our ships towards the opening. We named it the Strait of Magellan, after myself, of course. Passing through the strait was a whole new adventure in itself. The passage was narrow and treacherous, with strong currents and hidden rocks. We had to be very careful not to crash our ships against the rocks or get swept away by the powerful currents. It was a tense and nerve-wracking experience, but our months of training and experience paid off. After a few days of navigating the treacherous passage, we finally emerged on the other side. We had made it. We had found a new route to the Pacific Ocean, a vast sea we had only heard stories about. It was a moment of triumph, a victory against doubt and hardship. We had pushed the boundaries of exploration and opened a new chapter in the history of seafaring. But our journey was far from over. The Pacific Ocean stretched before us, a vast unknown waiting to be explored. What challenges awaited us in this new sea? Would we find the Spice Islands, or would our journey take us to even more unknown lands? Chapter 5. Uncharted Waters. Emerging from the Strait of Magellan was like stepping into a new world. The Pacific Ocean stretched before us, vast and endless, like a giant blue blanket. We had never seen anything like it before. Endless water as far as the eyes could see, with only the occasional flock of birds breaking the surface. It was exciting and a little terrifying at the same time. We were sailing into uncharted waters, a place where no European had been before. Our maps only showed the coastlines, and the vast center was a blank space, filled with mystery and unknown dangers. The first few days were like a dream. The weather was calm, the wind filled our sails, and the crew was in high spirits. We had conquered the treacherous Strait of Magellan, proving that my plan wasn't so crazy after all. Now, with renewed hope and excitement, we set our course westward, towards the Spice Islands. But the Pacific Ocean, like a playful cat, soon showed us its other side. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. We sailed and sailed, but the Spice Islands seemed to be forever out of reach. Our supplies started to dwindle. Food rations became smaller, and the quality of the water grew worse. We even started catching fish and seabirds to supplement our dwindling provisions. The crew's spirits started to sink faster than our anchors. Some fell ill from scurvy, a horrible disease caused by lack of fresh fruits and vegetables. Others started to grumble and complain, accusing me of leading them on a wild goose chase. It was a difficult time, testing my leadership and resolve. However, I refused to give up. I knew the Spice Islands had to be out there somewhere. Every night, I used my knowledge of the stars to navigate, showing the crew the constellations that would guide us on our journey. I encouraged them with stories of past explorers and the riches that awaited us at our destination. One strategy we used to conserve food was stopping at any islands we found along the way. We hoped to find friendly natives who might offer us food and water in exchange for trade goods we had brought with us. Unfortunately, most of the islands we encountered were small and uninhabited. We did find a few islands with people living on them, but communication was difficult. They spoke languages we didn't understand, and our attempts at bartering were met with suspicion and fear. One particularly challenging encounter happened on an island with fierce warriors. They approached our ships in canoes, brandishing spears and yelling in a language we couldn't understand. We tried to show them we were peaceful by waving white cloths and offering them gifts. Thankfully, they seemed to understand our intentions and eventually left us alone. These encounters, though scary, also showed us the diversity of the world. We saw people who lived differently than us, with different customs and ways of life. It broadened our understanding of the world and made us appreciate the comfort of our own homes, even if we were desperately missing them at the time. Months passed, and still no sign of the Spice Islands. The crew's frustration reached its peak. One night, a mutiny broke out on the San Antonio, one of our ships. A group of rebellious sailors, led by the captain, decided to turn back and sail to Spain. They believed the Spice Islands were just a myth and that we were doomed to die at sea. The mutiny was a huge blow, but we managed to control the situation and regain command of the San Antonio. Some of the rebellious sailors were punished, while others were offered a choice: continue the journey or be left on a deserted island. Most of them chose to stay, their fear of the unknown outweighing their desire to rebel. The loss of the San Antonio was a setback, but it also strengthened our resolve. We were a smaller crew now, but we were also a more united one. We had faced hardship and danger together, and our bond had grown stronger. Then, one day, after what felt like an eternity, a shout went up from the lookout post. "Land ahoy!" It was a small island, but to us, it was a beacon of hope. We landed on the island, hoping to find food and water. As we explored the island, we stumbled upon a group of friendly natives. They offered us fresh fruits, vegetables, and even some fish they had caught. It was a feast fit for a king, and it gave us the strength we needed to continue our journey. Through gestures and broken words, we managed to communicate with the natives. They told us about other islands further west, larger islands with people who grew valuable spices. Our hearts soared with renewed hope. Could these islands finally be the Spice Islands we were searching for? With a full stomach and a renewed sense of purpose, we set sail again. The journey ahead would be challenging, that much we knew. But for the first time in months, we sailed with Chapter 6. A Tragic Turn. Fueled by the news from the friendly natives and a newfound optimism, we pressed on westward. Weeks turned into months, and the Pacific continued to test our resilience. The vastness of the ocean felt endless, and the constant sun and salt spray wore on us. But the hope of finally finding the Spice Islands kept us going. One day, a storm unlike any we had encountered before struck. Towering waves slammed against our ships, threatening to tear them apart. The wind howled like a banshee, tearing at our sails. We fought desperately to keep the ships afloat, praying that we wouldn't be swallowed whole by the angry sea. For days, the storm raged on. Our ships were battered and bruised, some leaks springing up. We used all our skills and experience to repair the damage and keep the water at bay. Some men, overcome by fear and exhaustion, succumbed to illness. This storm was pushing us to the limit. Finally, as if exhausted from its own fury, the storm subsided. We emerged, battered but not broken, into a calmer sea. However, the storm had taken a heavy toll. One of our ships, the Concepcion, was so badly damaged that it was impossible to repair. We were forced to abandon it, setting it adrift with a small crew who would hopefully be rescued by another ship. Losing the Concepcion was another blow, but we couldn't dwell on it. We had 3 ships remaining, and our determination to find the Spice Islands remained strong. We continued our westward journey, navigating by the stars and the occasional glimpse of land. Then, one beautiful morning, the lookout's cry pierced the air. Land ho! This time, it wasn't a small island, but a large archipelago, a cluster of islands that stretched as far as the eye could see. Could this finally be it? Could we have finally reached our destination? Chapter 7. A Land of Spices, a Loss of Hope. Our hearts pounded with excitement as we steered our ships towards the archipelago. The islands were lush and green, with towering palm trees swaying in the gentle breeze. As we approached, canoes filled with curious natives paddled out to meet us. They spoke a language we didn't understand, but their gestures were friendly and welcoming. Through bartering and a mixture of sign language and broken words, we managed to communicate with the natives. We learned that these were indeed the Spice Islands, the legendary source of cloves and cinnamon. Our months of hardship and sacrifice had finally paid off. We spent some time on the islands, trading our remaining goods for spices, the sweet, pungent scent of cloves and the warm, cinnamon aroma filled the air. The natives were amazed by our trinkets and metal tools, readily exchanging them for spices that were worth their weight in gold back in Europe. However, amidst this newfound success, tragedy struck. During a skirmish with a group of hostile natives, I was struck by a poisoned arrow. The wound festered quickly, and despite the best efforts of the crew, my health deteriorated rapidly. As I lay on my sickbed, surrounded by loyal crew members, I realized my journey was coming to an end. I wouldn't make it back to Spain to witness the impact of our discovery. Yet, a sense of satisfaction filled me. We had found the Spice Islands, a new route to riches and a testament to human exploration. With my last breath, I appointed my trusted lieutenant, Juan Sebastian Elcano, as the new leader. With a heavy heart, the crew buried me on one of the Spice Islands, a final resting place for the explorer who dared to sail into the unknown. Though I wasn't there to witness it, Elcano and the remaining crew successfully completed the journey, returning to Spain with a cargo of spices and a story that would forever be etched in history. The voyage of Magellan and Elcano had opened a new era of exploration, paving the way for future generations of sailors and adventurers.